Welcome back into the Lads Talking Footy podcast. As always, myself, Sam, joined by Jordan Tana. Mate, in our round 26 preview on the way, we've got a couple of listener questions, but before we get into all of that, the All Blacks, they take on South Africa this coming Sunday morning. Last week we saw the news of Leon McDonald stepping away from the coaching staff, a bit of conflict between him and Razor. I actually really like it. It sort of paints a picture that there's a lot of transparency in the way there, but you do kind of wonder why they hadn't maybe got their ducks in a row completely before coming into this. It is quite early on, but we had talked about it being a little bit confusing in terms of the attacking flow, and that was obviously identified, and they were trying to work through that, and there was conflict between the two of them, and ultimately McDonald is stepping away from that. I do like it from Razor, mate, but what are your sort of thoughts around it all?
Yeah, I've got mixed feelings on Leon McDonald getting fired right before a South Africa test. On one hand, I can see why it could be beneficial going into such a high stakes environment, given that if there's a disconnect between the coaches and Leon McDonald has his philosophies that don't quite align with Scott Razor Robinson's philosophies, and with such a big coaching group already, I can kind of understand why they would cut the fruit there and then just take a clear approach going into South Africa. But on the other hand, it could also create some like unrest within the team. Like there could be sort of personal connections with Leon McDonald from some of the players, which, maybe they might feel some way about it. So I am a little bit mixed. I guess we're going to see the final product and whether the attack is going to look any different come the games in South Africa. But we have been seeing maybe an inconsistent pattern of attack from the All Blacks. Like they were outstanding against Argentina. They made the appropriate adjustments. But in the three previous games, we hadn't really seen them unlock to their full potential yet. So that could be definitely a byproduct of a little bit of confusion amongst the attacking policies that the All Blacks wanted to face. And so I do kind of understand what you're saying in that it is a good thing, but I just got to feel for the culture of the environment and see if there is any players like that might have been upset with the exclusion of Leo McDonald on this tour.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I don't think we're going to see like an immediate change in that attacking flow against South Africa. I don't even think we'll see it potentially against the Wallabies either. I think it's something that will start to blossom as they move forward and they sort of get on the same page. But it is a little bit of a shame, to be honest. You kind of feel like the test series against England and then obviously the test against Argentina, and they've tried to work through this all, but they're going to have to wipe the slate clean and go again. So it is a little bit frustrating, I guess, considering you got to remember the All Blacks did meet well back at the start of the year with Razor while he had all that coaching staff, and they've had a lot of time to sort of get on the same page and sort of work through. So you do wonder where that butting of the heads came from in terms of maybe they wanted to see a different thing, or maybe Razor's sort of saying, just hold back a little bit and let's see how this goes. So it will be interesting to see how it all plays out. But what's your prediction, mate, for this two-game series? Both of them are being played over there as well.
For this first game, I don't think you like what I'm going to say.
No, I think I agree with you.
Yeah, I think we're going to struggle big time in this first game. I mean, in that first game against Argentina, we really struggled with the physicality they showed. And then we did a little things to adapt and turn that result around. But South Africa is different to Argentina. Like, they don't bring, like, just stock standard flyers out of the line like Argentina did, just one guy trying to put pressure on the ball carrier. They move up as like a green wall, to use a Silverdale 85's term. They're like a green wall, and they put a lot of pressure all the way throughout the line. And I think New Zealand's going to really struggle. We can't just do little chips over the top or little tip balls or little ice balls that's going to break this defense. So I think we're going to struggle. I think South Africa is going to be really up to it. And I'm thinking it's going to be a pretty small line considering how respected the All Blacks are going up against South Africa and just any team in general in rugby union. But man, I'm looking at that line. I don't know what it is right now, but I'm probably going to take a South Africa line in that first test. I don't know about the second test. I'll make my decision whether, we show up in this first game or whatnot. But I am really, really worried about this first game in South Africa.
Yeah, I'm not worried about this rugby championship in terms of the results from the All Blacks. I don't think that we will win it. If we do end up coming away with it and having a successful campaign, that's fantastic for them. But all I want to see is I think South Africa going to be completely dominant physicality. They're going to bring the physicality in this first game. They're going to be very, very dominant in the set piece area, which we know that that's what South Africa do. It'll be interesting to see where they see um, that sort of chink in the armour, I guess, for the All Blacks. We've seen it in previous years. South Africa with the kicking game when they were targeting our wingers quite a lot. We've seen a lot of creative play around the line out as well. So for the All Blacks, all I want to see is if this doesn't go well in this first test, I want to see us adapt and see a little bit of improvement in the second test. And then I will call it a small bit of a win for them. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, man, and both of them over there as well. I believe the last 8 test matches between us and South Africa have been 4 each. They've won 4 each. So obviously South Africa with the most recent one in the Rugby World Cup final. So there will be a little bit of venom there, which will be interesting. We've got some listener questions, mate, before we move into some previewing. So if you are listening to this, do drop us a question because we like that interaction and we want to build this and keep growing. The first one comes in from Flynn Robbins. He wants to know who's the top 3 wide receivers in the NFL currently, our predictions.
Okay. The top 3 wide receivers, it is a very stacked position, so it was quite hard to whittle it down just to 3 guys. But at third place, I have CD Lamb from the Dallas Cowboys. Last year, league high, 135 receptions for 1,749 yards and 12 touchdowns. No real additions in the Cowboys in terms of offense, and he just got paid that $136 million for 4 years. So I can see a similar sort of season from CD Lamb, and I can see some numbers skyrocket for him. Number 2, I might be holding on a little bit here, but I'm going Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings. Over 1,000 receiving yards on 68 receptions in an injury-ridden season. But if you look at the year before that, league-leading 1,809 receiving yards. And I feel like he's a regardless of quarterback player. Like, he'll be able to get his numbers, whether it's J.J. McCarthy, is it Sam Darnold, I believe they've got over there now. So
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson, I'm seeing him as the second best. And then number 1, fastest man in football for mine, Tyreek Hill from the Miami Dolphins. Last year, absolutely outstanding season. He was looking pretty close early on to going for that 2,000 receiving yard season. Didn't quite get there, but still led the league with 1,799 receiving yards and a league-leading 13 touchdowns as well. So Tyreek Hill is my number 1 wide receiver.
Nice. Interesting list. So I've gone for a little bit of a twist here on you because I guess you can kind of rank these guys coming into the season. We probably would look a little bit similar, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to give predicted top 3 wide receivers by the end of the season. So at number 1, I've actually got CeeDee Lamb. He finally got the bag. It's now for him to go out and play some football. When you think Cowboys offense, it's CeeDee Lamb. You've got Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Ferguson, he's going to be in short yardage play there. We've got Big Zeke out in the backfield. I think they're just looking for a running back to take that position off him. He will get his touches in the pass game, which, that little drop off and hand off to Zeke. But look, when you think Cowboys offense, it's Dak and it's CD. And I think he's going to come out being that top wide receiver at the end of the year and sort of just add to why he did or justify as to why he got the bag there as well. Number 2, I'm going to go Jamar Chase, man. You've got T. Higgins on that offense there. That didn't stop Cheetah and Waddle, though, last year. And he's got Joe Burrow throwing in the ball. I think Burrow's going to be absolutely fantastic this year. We know that connection between the two of them is absolutely proven. And we keep waiting every single year for that receiver just to have that breakout year. I think this year is going to be just Jamar Chase's time to break out. Now, number 3, I've actually got Amon-Ra St. Brown. You've got Jitters there, but like you said, he's got Sam Darnold. And you've got Tyreek, and I think that offense is just going to look a little bit different this year. I think Waddle's going to take that next step. You've obviously got Achan that's going to be in and around that potential dump-off play, and it's going to be interesting to see what this Miami defense looks like. But for Amon-Ra, his 2021, he had 912 yards, 5 touchdowns. 2022, he had 1,161 yards, 6 touchdowns. Last year, he broke out. 2023, he had 1,515 yards and a total of 10 touchdowns. Now, I know I said before with CeeDee Lamb, obviously in that offense, when you think of him, it's just CD. Obviously, Jamar Chase out in Cincinnati. They've gotten rid of Joe Mixon out there, so it's sort of just him and T. Higgins. But I think Amon Ra is going to get his touches, and he's shown that he can be extremely productive. I know you've got Laporta, I know you've got Gibbs there, but I'm predicting this year he might be sort of around that 1,600 yard again. I don't think he'll hit that 10 touchdown mark, which is why I've got him in 3. I think it'll be a little bit less than that. But he's an absolute dog out there, man. That's my top 3. I'm ready for those the next dogs to take that step up. And obviously, you want to put Justin Jefferson in there, but I just don't trust Darnold. I don't understand what's going out there in Minnesota. I just think that, in every good sort of a graph where you see the troughs, the dips, and the climbs on it all, I think he's just going to have that little bit of a dip here before potentially going up against next year. Um, Now, the next one comes in from Fergie. So, Fergie's Golf, aka it's on the bench sport. Can a team outside of the top 4 win the comp? If so, who?
Okay, so judging or assuming I should say that the top 4 is pretty much locked in with the Sharks, the Roosters, the Panthers, and the Storm. I'm looking at the other 4 teams, and I'm going to say no. I'm going to say none of those teams can actually win the competition. But the best bet to win the competition out of those 4, or maybe even extended past 4, if you consider some of the contenders going for the 8, the best chance out of those teams is the Bulldogs for me. And it's because their defense has been absolutely outstanding all year, obviously league leading in defense. But their attack is starting to really come into shape as well, and they're starting to be a dangerous team. So you did outline question marks in the show a couple of weeks ago over how good they actually could be, and that's why I'm going to reserve the fact to say that they could genuinely win the competition. But I think they could maybe do a good job at getting to those preliminary finals and maybe even putting themselves in a position where they can be in the grand final. But for me, there's only 2 teams with a courtesy third team that are genuine contenders that can win this competition. For me at the moment, it's the Melbourne Storm. I spoke a few weeks ago about them doing a 40 to 50 point game to really lock it in for me, and they did that in the weekend. But also the Sydney Roosters, I think, are super impressive lately, and they are a genuine chance as well. And then for the third courtesy one is the Panthers, just because they do have a stacked team. They have done it 3 years in a row. They do have Nathan Cleary. I'm not liking what I'm seeing defensively, and I'm not liking all the errors that they're making. They're not looking as clinical as the previous years, but there's still a chance, and I still have to give them courtesy consideration. But Bulldogs, I don't think they can get it done, but they're the best of the lot.
Yeah, I'm going to go against you a little bit here. I actually think there is a potential that a team outside that top 8 could win the competition because it is so up in the air. I think if Penrith were that dominant coming into it, obviously iron sharpens iron and the cream of the crop and the top 4 teams might be a little bit on, but Melbourne Storm, we've seen them hit their form at the moment, but with the Sydney Roosters, I do think there's a few chinks in the armour there in the defensive game, and they've proven that they actually can get over the top of the Storm and the Panthers as well. Finals footy is a little bit different, but this is obviously everyone's going to be out there saying this is a completely biased take because Manly is in that top 8 that is outside of the top 4. So blah, blah, blah. 21-14, they beat the Roosters this season. 32-18, they beat Penrith this season. 26-20, they beat the Storm this season. That's the top 3 and all contenders that you just said. They've beaten them this season. Now, I know, finals aren't won in March, they aren't won in April, and they aren't won in June. It's a little bit later on. So those scores don't really count, but they have proven that they know how to beat them. And all of those games, that intensity has been there. Up at 4 Pines Park against the Melbourne Storm, they brought it to them. Same with Penrith Panthers. I know that it's at home for them, but they know how to play them and they know where to beat them as well. So for me, I think if it is a team that is going to push that top 4, it is Manly. I want to see a little bit more out of them defensively, but they got the runs on the board against them, mate. Now we're going to head into some accountability. A lot of red, mate. So we'll get through this as quickly as possible.
Yeah, unfortunately, pretty dusty week for the lads. We're up for vengeance this week, though. We're going to bounce back. My picks were 4 from 8. Your picks were 3 from 8. And we both started with, well, I think everyone got stung by this game because the Tigers beat the Seagulls 34-26 in some, I would say Leichhardt magic, but it was more like Leichhardt shenanigans because the Seagulls were down to 12 men for about half an hour of that game, and there was just a whole lot of penalties going against them. Anyway, I'm not trying to cope here. I've gone Seagulls 13 plus, which has not hit.
Yeah, I've gone Manly 13 plus into Mole at $4. I think there's some sort of fucking dark magic out there at Leichhardt or something. I saw like a reference a little while ago in terms of like a reference to the Harry Potter movies, and that the West Tigers are kind of like Voldemort, and they've split their soul into Horcruxes that are located all throughout the NRL. Like Leichhardt's one of them, Tim Sheens is one of them, Luke Brooks is a Horcrux playing for Manly, and you sort of think that maybe coming back for the barbecue game for them against the Tigers in Leichhardt, sort of everything would align, but all this dark magic started to happen and the Horcruxes collided, and it's wild, man. They've got to figure out how to get rid of it. The NRL's trying to get rid of Leichhardt, but they can't defeat the Horcruxes and whatever's going on out there, man. But it's wild, man. It's a real thing.
I think the Tigers need to go out and collect all their Horcruxes so they can become whole, and then they can finally get off the wooden spoon spot. So that's what the Tigers need to do. They need to go find their Horcruxes. Another result that we were probably coping about is the Bulldogs beating the Warriors on Shaun Johnson night, his last game at home, spoiling the party 34-18. I've gone the Warriors 1-12, thinking a little bit of magic could happen there. I've double staked it and it hasn't come through.
Yeah, I double staked it as well. I had buyers in Montoya at $4.75. So yeah, I went down there as well.
And then another brutal result for me. Broncos beat the Eels 30-24. I've been stung by the half a point again, going Broncos -6.5, which has not hurt.
Bookies, no, man. I've gone Jesse Arthurs and Talangi at $3.75. Neither of them scored. Terrible punting there.
And then on Saturday, a result that probably stung quite a lot of people as well. Raiders beat the Panthers 22-18. I've gone Panthers 11-20, which they haven't even won, so missed there.
Yeah, and I went Panthers 13 plus at $2.20. So yeah, big red cross there.
And then the Storm beat the Dolphins 48-6. Super impressive performance from the Melbourne Storm. I've gone the Storm 11-20, thinking it was going to be somewhat close, but they've absolutely made a statement.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried about a score line there, and I just went for both edges that were extremely weak, and Bostock and Warbrick at 360, but we go down there as well.
And then the Knights beat the Rabbitohs 36-16. The only green tick of the week, the Knights -8.5 coming through.
Nice and tasty. I've got Marju and Jai Gray at $4 on the nose there. Both of them haven't scored.
And then Sunday footy, Roosters absolutely putting a pounding on the Titans, 48-22. I've gone Titans +20.5 and total points over 48.5. They've hit the total, but the Titans have been blown out by more than 20. So big miss there.
Yeah, I've gone Tupou, AKP, so we've got a tick, but I've gone Dom Young at $4.20, and he lets me down there. AKP looks like he's chopped up that try score record.
He came through for you.
Oh, did he?
That bit's come through.
My bad.
He got a little chip kick from Luke Keary.
Oh, there we go. We got a tick there.
Yeah, we got a tick. And then finally, the Sharks beat the Dragons in another statement performance, really, 38-10. Sharkies looking really good. I've gone Dragons +3.5. Thought it was going to be close, but unfortunately not.
Yeah, I've gone all in on the Dragons there with Lomax, Tuipulotu, and Dragons +3.5 at $5.25, so we go down there. My repeat set, mate, the equation, the math, it's finally let me down. I've gone Manly, Panthers, Storm, all to win. Panthers, Manly, let me down horrifically at $1.91, so we go down there. And the 40-20s, I took the Dragons and the Wires at $5.60, capping it off with another big red cross there.
Well, you know why it's gone down? It's because I followed you, and I've got the repeat set bet Juju at the moment. I've gone Seagulls head-to-head into Knights head-to-head, which has gone down. And then my 40-20 bet, it's just Juju everywhere. I've actually had a shocker, really. I've gone the Titans head-to-head, just thinking they were great value at $5.50, but unfortunately they've missed there.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you can look at that one of two ways. Obviously, shocking punting for the lads, but sometimes you got to lose one to step up your game. And after a week like that, I'd follow us into war this week because it's going to be onwards and upwards from there. We're going to move into the performances of the round. I'll kick us off. So, my performance of the round this week was actually the Melbourne Storm spine. If this thing clicks in finals, look out. 2 tries, 6 try assists, 23 tackle breaks, 6 line break assists, and 570 run meters, all between Jerome Hughes, Cam Munster, Grant, and Pappenhausen. I know the Dolphins, they absolutely fell apart in the middle there, but they also pulled Munster and Grant off with 15 minutes to go, right before they started absolutely cutting them apart even more. It just blows my mind, though, how they managed to replace Billy, Cronk, and Cam Smith with a trio of Hughes, Grant, and Pappenhausen. It's unfair out there, mate. And then you throw Stefano into the mix for them next year. It's lights out, man. The Melbourne Storm is scary. That spine, though, if that thing is clicking, it is the best attacking weapon in the NRL, and we've seen it for decades.
Yeah, that was an absolute statement performance from the Melbourne Storm on Saturday. 48-6 over the Dolphins. And we've been saying that this has been a sleeping giant on attack. They haven't quite figured it out. On Saturday, they well and truly figured it out. And it was off the back of maybe the least informed player in their spine throughout this year, and Harry Grant. He unlocked that attack because he had an outstanding game, and you could see that the attack flowed from that. And then I'm just super impressed with how the Storm can make a break, push right to the line, and then they can still quickly shift it and play off shape, like impromptu straight shape, just like that, to score tries in the corners. It's just amazing stuff from the Storm, and hats off to Craig Bellamy because he just makes rugby league look beautiful every year down there in Melbourne, and they're continuing to do it again. Speaking of beautiful, my performance of the round, Angus Crichton. Now, what does Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Dylan Edwards all have in common?
They got the bald head, mate. They got the bald
They
head.
got the bald head. And then when they got the bald head, they took their games to the next level. And I'm not saying that Angus Crichton's done that after one game because, he didn't have like a super crazy performance. He was just consistently as good as he's always been. 156 run meters, 1 line break, 5 tackle breaks, 2 offloads, and 27 tackles. But I reckon the ball juju is what played into getting him a hat trick in this game because they were all real opportunistic tries. I know he's really good at like pushing up and being in support, and you make your own luck really in these situations. But I reckon the ball juju got him that hat trick, and he's about to take his game to a next level. And speaking of next levels, this game was he had a chip on his shoulder because he was directly matched up with David Fafita, who was the reason why Crichton's contract extension was getting, a little bit put back and delayed. And this whole David Fafita contract signing debacle as well earlier this year really must have rubbed Angus Crichton the wrong way. And he took the matchup personally, and he won the battle. He was putting on shots, and he obviously scored the hat trick, and he was so hard to put down in contact. And I think this proves why many are saying he is the best second rower in the game. And in my personal opinion, I do think he is the best second rower in the game. So shout out to Bald Crichton. You're still a beast.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up that in terms of the narrative around the whole game because it might be one of the stories of the season, the way that he's started this year, the contract debacle, them holding out on re-signing him, the origin performances, the Wally Lewis medal from him. It's just been a wild season for Angus Crichton. Now he's shaved his head and he's just doing some freakish things out there. Wait till finals footy, mate, for them because they've got some players that are in form. It's going to be interesting, but man, he's exciting to watch out there. He's just seems like one of those runners where he just puts the arms up, the knees are high, just a pain in the ass to tackle one of those guys. And I mean, we saw the Better Bear boys in a little infomercial that they did throughout the year, getting lined up by a couple of them, and they came off. I wouldn't even say second best; they just came off in the fucking ground there. But yeah, he's outstanding, man. We're going to jump into the round 26 preview, mate. It's only 2 more to go for the season. We're coming close to finals footy. All of these odds are accurate as of Tuesday at 6 p.m. We're going to kick it off with the Cowboys and the Storm at Queensland Country Bank Stadium. We're not going to stay long on this in terms of the preview because the Cowboys are $1.24 favourites. The Storm are $4.10 underdogs. The line is at 12.5. It might be subject to change before kickoff. I'm not going to even name them. It's a random as fuck team out there if you want to go have a look at it. Grant Anderson, he's at halfback. 11 players rested for the Storm. Kind of interesting, though, that you've got Papa Munster still out there. He obviously wants to get the reps into them before finals footy. So I do like that. And it kind of does cast a little bit of a cloud over a result here because anything could happen. For the Cowboys, Nanai and Taumalolo are back for them. 44 games between the two of them. Melbourne have won 32 of them. The Cowboys have won their last 2 meetings against them and won won 2 of their last 3 games against them at the venue. I'm not going into much more here. I'm tipping the Cowboys just because of the rotation and the pack in this one.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Like you said, the Cowboys did beat them in their last two meetings, and both of those games were at Townsville, and they were convincing results as well against a team that is probably much a team, sorry, that were much better on paper than this Storm team because, like you said, there's just changes galore. Anderson at halfback, I heard he played there in his juniors, but it's surprising to see him at top level after playing wing all year. So, very interesting stuff from the Storm, but I get it. They've got the minor premiership locked up. They don't need to push too hard. But Cowboys have been pretty good, man. They've won 4 of their last 5, and they're looking great on attack. And they're averaging 31.6 points per game over that stretch. So they're a good attacking team. We've had their questions about their defense, and those questions still exist going into the finals. But I am going to back them here. Carl Feltz has been
Yeah.
impressive lately. He scored 11 tries in his last 8 games, so his clip's going hard. And I'm going to go the Cowboys -6.5 into Felt anytime try scorer at $2.20.
Yeah, I like it, man. The narrative around it as well. He's in for a big game. I'm actually going as friend on the other side of it. I'm going Murray Taulagi. He's scored 3 tries in his last 2 games against the Storm, and the right edge for them has just been an absolute target defensively this season. I'll take the Cows on the nose as well. So Taulagi and the Raiders to win at $2.20. The Dogs, they take
No,
on
no.
Manly at a course stadium. The Dogs are $1.63 favourites in this. Manly, $2.30 underdogs with the line sitting at 3.5. For Manly, Talau is back, so Kohler moves to the bench for them. For the Dogs, no Critter. It sees Carraz move to centre and Skelton to the wing. Salmon comes in to replace Kurt Mann. I do think that's going to be a massive loss for the Doggies this season. You're in for a novel here, mate. You heard some absolute bias before. You're going to get a whole lot biased now. Um, Bounce back games, they are a real thing, and we see that a lot. I know the Dogs haven't lost a home game at all this year, but everything comes to an end at some point. The Tigers just beat Manly at that dreaded Leichhardt Oval. Like I said earlier, it's poisoned with some sort of dark magic. But the Tigers, they've only won 6 games this season. They beat the Sharks in round 3. The Sharks won the following week. They beat the Eels in round 4. The Eels lost the following week, but they suck. They beat the Titans in round 15. They beat the Warriors the following round by 60 points. They beat the Raiders in round 16. The Raiders lost to the Storm the following week, but the Storm are minor premiers. They then beat the Raiders in round 16. They beat the Rabbitohs in round 24. Obviously, the Bunnies lost the following week because they suck as well. But then they've just beat Manly as well. So every half decent team that has beaten the Tigers this year has won the following week. That's only magic that I'm going for in terms of stats here. But everything happens, man. Bounce back games are a real thing. I think the the home record is gonna fall this season. And you heard it here first. Manly win.
Okay, I like what you did there because that is your team, and you found a way to use Juju to work in the Manly Seagulls' favor. But I tried to use Juju with my betting last week and maybe the last couple of weeks with the Warriors and like stuff like that, and it just hasn't been working out for me. So I'm just gonna stick with the cold hard facts this week. I'm gonna go Bulldogs. They have won the last 5 games, and you did highlight that Seagulls did just lose to the Tigers, which they didn't look great in that game. Like the Tigers were really finding some attacking success on them. And the Bulldogs, for all their stuff on defense, they are the best defensive team in the comp. They have been averaging 31 points per game over their last 5 as well. And the Seagulls, they have a great attack, but they're only averaging 1.8 more points per game over their last 5 with significantly worse points conceded. So I have to go with the Bulldogs to keep their undefeated record at a core. I am going to say it is going to be a close game. I'm going to go Bulldogs 1-12 at $3.40.
Manly have actually won 9 of their last 10 games against the Bulldogs and won 2 of their last 3 games against them at a course stadium as well. I've been on the Hamole train for a few weeks now and it just ain't banging for me at the moment, but I'm not going to steer off it because that's when they always bang. So I'm going to stay strong. I'm going Hamole Olakuatu, Manly for the upset. That'll give you $6.50 there. The Panthers, they're at Bluebet Stadium taking on the Bunnies. They are $1.14 favourites in this one. The Bunnies are $5.80 underdogs with a horrific 16.5 line. For the Panthers, Taruva and Alamotti, they come back into the starting squad. Kenny is also a returnee for them this week. Cam Murray, he has been named, but it's obviously pending his judiciary So judiciary meeting tonight. Walker is back for them as well. Much like I said earlier, bounce back games are a real thing. I think the Panthers are going to spank them here. Over the knee, slap them silly. Penrith have won 6 of their last 5 games against them. Souths have lost their last 5 games in a row, and they have lost 10 of their last 12 away games as well. So for me, I'm taking the Panthers in a bounce back.
Yeah, completely agree, and completely agree with this is probably going to be a comfortable win for the Panthers. They did beat a similarly depleted Rabbitohs team earlier this year, 42-12. And besides Cleary, they are looking pretty much at full strength. Like, this is a strong Panthers team. And I just think with the Rabbitohs losing 5 in a row, they've just got all sorts of problems, and they're probably looking towards next year already. So I am going to say the Panthers are going to be playing as hard as they can to jockey for position. Targo scored the last time they played, and he has scored 4 tries in his last 4 games. So I was considering To'o, but I like Targo's form lately. So I'm going to go Panthers 13 plus into Targo anytime try scorer at $2.90.
Nice, not bad. I'm just going for some value here and a bit of a feel it out bet. I'm going Dylan Edwards because you brought up both guys before. Jerome Luai, and I'm going to take the Panthers 13 plus at $8. The Eels, they take on the Dargans at CommBank Stadium. We've got the Spoon Bowl next week, mate, but I honestly thought this might have been our Spoon Bowl earlier, so I guess we get that teaspoon before the real spoon next week. The Dragons are $1.62 favourites. The Eels are $2.31 underdogs. And the line is at 3.5. No notable changes for the Eels and the Dragons. They get Faitala Mariner back for them. Now, there's obviously the win-loss trend for the Dragons since round 14. They lost again last week, so you'd expect this week they'd win. But there's also another trend that they've got here. Over the last 11 weeks, they've gone win-loss-loss, 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 win-win, all away from home, mate. So they're playing away here. I reckon this is just going to be the round that we saw a bit of an upset round, a shenanigan round last week. I think this round is the round where the trends end here. So I think the Dragons win-loss trend, it's going to end. The Eels, they've got the Spoon Bowl next week. It's a big game for them. They need to find some momentum going into a very, very big game. So I've got the Eels to win in that one.
Yeah, I hate to go against the win-loss trend because, I've been burnt betting against the Dragons and going against this trend, but it seems to be a real thing. But lo and behold, I actually agree with you. I'm going to do it again because, the Eels have won the last 2 games against the Dragons, and both of those are at CommBank. And the Eels' attack has actually been pretty good, I'll say loosely lately, because, they are 1-5 and 1-4 in their last 5 games. But they are averaging 23.2 points per game compared to the Dragons only averaging 16 points per game in the last 5 games. So I do like the Eels on attack a little bit better. And in 20-plus degree conditions on a clear afternoon, I think it favors the Eels' more recent form and attack. So I'm going to say another close game. I'm going to say Eels 1-12 at $3.60.
Not bad, mate. I don't know about this one punting-wise. I'm just going for a little bit of logic here. Zach Lomax, he's obviously plays for the Dragons and he's going to the Eels next year. He's just going to want to impress his new teammates. So I think he's going to score a try in this one. And then I've backed the Eels to win, so I'm going to stay strong on there. So I've got Zach Lomax to score and the Eels to win. That'll give you $4.20. Now the Finns, they take on the Broncos at Suncorp. The Broncos are $1.39 favourites. The Finns are $3.04 underdogs and the line is at 7.5. O'Sullivan and Nichols join the starting side for the Dolphins. Payne Haas has also been listed amongst the reserves somehow after that Lisfranc fracture in round 22, and Big Benny Takura has been added to the bench for them as well. So little bro versus big bro. If you're going by anything on what Kevin Wilder said last week, you take the Broncos because apparently they're absolutely playing finals this year. I also hate how this is a Broncos away game at Suncorp. They've been absolutely spoon-fed this season in terms of home games and the stadium to game ratio. They're constantly playing home games as away games. It's ridiculous what they've been given this year. But the Broncos have won all 3 of their meetings against the Dolphins and the Dolphins have lost 4 of their last 6 home games as well. I just think they've sort of run their race here, unfortunately. They started really high and they've taken a couple of top contenders, or they've taken a few scalps throughout the season. They've been extremely impressive, but we saw this last year as well, and we're starting to see it again. It's a little bit of an aging forward pack, obviously, and then injuries are sort of starting to riddle them. I just think it's going to keep declining, unfortunately, for the Finns, and I'm going to say the Broncos win this.
Yeah, I agree. I agree because I agree with your sentiments about the Dolphins as well. You do see it starting to tail off, and then especially with all these injuries happening at the moment, they've lost some key guys in Nick Arima and Jesse Bromwich, which removes size from the pack as which is important coming up against a massive Broncos pack with Ben Takura on the bench, with Xavier Willison starting, and with Payne Haas looming in the wings as a potential addition as well. So they're going to really miss those guys. And the Broncos are 3-0 against the Dolphins in their history. Two of those games were at Suncorp. And the Broncos are actually the team in better form results-wise, winning 3 of their last 5 and attacking. I know we've talked about the Dolphins' attack and how they've looked pretty slick, but lately it's actually the Broncos who have looked slicker, averaging 27.2 points per game, which is 7.6 more than the 1-4 Dolphins over their last 5. So I am actually going to back the Broncos, and I think they can do a handy jobby here. I'm going to go Broncos minus 8.5. Handy jobby, I just realized. Broncos minus 8.5 at $2.05.
Nice. I was actually scrolling on the Instagram feed today and I came across the Broncos with a little team photo shoot today and I was swiping through them all and a little photo came up, a nice big portrait of Selwyn Cobbo. He's looking really, really happy, mate. He's looking good. He's back playing some good footy. He's scored a try in every single game that he's played against the Dolphins, 6 tries in 3 games against them. I think that's just the lock of the round stats-wise. He's out there, he's looking happy. For me, Cobbo wins Cobbo scores and the Broncos win $2.37. Now we've got the SJ and AFB Cup, mate. The Sharks take on the Wires at PointsBet Stadium. The Sharks are $1.18 favourites. The Warriors, they are $4.90 underdogs, and the line is at a whopping 13.5. Nico Hines has been named on the extended squad for the Sharkies. Sione Katoa returns this week for them, and Sifa Talakai is in for Jesse Ramian in the centre spot. For the Warriors, Tuapiki is in for Chance, who shifts to the centre spot to replace RTS. And Chanel Harris-Tavita has also been named as 18th man. So I do hope we do get to actually see SJ one more time at Shark Park. I'll let you go first on this one before I get into my prediction.
Yeah, you know where I'm going. That's why. I'm just going to stick with the Sharks because I do love the Warriors. And I do see a world where they could shock a few people. Hopefully we get to your prediction and you do something there. But I do see a world where they can actually shock a few people and do an upset over the Sharks. I'm going to just try be a little more grounded this week. The Sharks did beat the Warriors in round 1 over here, and they have won 4 of their last 5 and have looked great all round, if I'm being honest, especially with Trindle coming back into that 7 position, working with Atkinson at 5'8", and especially on defense where they're only conceding 12.8 points per game over that time. Whereas the Warriors have been the opposite defensively lately. We've had our problems in our center positions, and we're conceding 27.6 points per game in the last 5, and we're going 1-4 in that stretch as well, only with a win over the Tigers. So really rough signs for the Warriors at the moment. And you just look at the games, they just get off to a hot start, which is why I think they do have a chance here, especially if they can maintain that throughout the game. But they lose focus towards the back end of games, and that's where you see the team start to run away with it. So I am just going to back the Sharks. Sorry, everyone. I've gone against the All Blacks and the Warriors in one episode. So, take my passport. But Sam Stonestreet as well, he scored 6 tries in his last 4 games. I'm going to go the Sharks minus 2.5 into Stonestreet anytime try scorer at $2.05.
Okay, well, I'm not going to stay grounded, mate. A few Wars here playing their last games in the blue, green, and red. Johnson, he goes back into Shark Park to take on an old friend and end his career, hopefully on a high. The last 4 meetings between the two of them have been split by 2 wins each. The Sharks have won 3 of their last 4 against them, though, and by a 13-plus margin. But I believed in Santa. I believed in a bunny that used to bring you chocolate eggs, and I believed in a little fairy that would take your tooth from under your pillow and leave you a coin for some weird reason. So I believed in fairy tales, mate. Time to turn on the Disney Channel on Saturday night and watch a fairy tale unfold at PointsBet Stadium. Magic Johnson and the Wires will defeat the Sharks in the end of season high for them, and they'll come out with that all-so-classic saying, next year's our year. We see it time in, time out. I'm a believer in the fairy tales. I think everyone got on what I'm about to say next way too early. I think the Warriors win in this one. And I'm jumping in on the bet here for this. The Warriors head-to-head, SJ and AFB, fairy tales are real, $37, and I'm going to double it as well. I think Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, man. And when I was looking at the odds here, they've got Shaun Johnson as a higher odd to score a try than Adam Finau-Blake, so it's only gonna come in. Everyone's jumping on that storybook ending here, but $37, I'm gonna double it, mate. I think fairy tales are real, and I think we're gonna end on a high. The Knights, they take on the Titans at McDonald Jones Stadium. Knights are $1.35 favourites. The Titans are $3.25 underdogs, and the line is at 8.5. For the Knights, Bradman Best returns for them, and Sami comes into the centres for the Titans to replace Brimo, who has had his season cut short with a groin injury where he's headed off for surgery on that. Terrible record here for the Titans, just a 36% win rate. The Knights have won 4 of their last 5 games against them, and I'm pretty stuck on picking this though, but they're both kind of dogs to predict at the moment. They're super up in the air. You don't know what team's going to turn up on the day, but I just think the B team for the Titans has been turning up lately, so I think the A team might turn up for them here. Much like the Knights, they've managed to maybe not play the A team at the moment, but they're chalking up a few wins and they're looking good. But I think it might come down for them. So I'm going to back the Titans here. I think they have that a little bit of a better squad at the moment and a little bit more attack to offer. And Kinney, he seems to always take these fullback matchups head on, I guess. So you saw him up against Reece Walsh just a few weeks ago, so I think he's going to go out Kalen Ponga in this one. So for me, I'm going to take the Titans to win.
Yeah, I like the logic because the Knights do look a little bit thin on their second row department at the moment with Frizzell and Pierce Paul both out. So that could be a point where they can attack, especially with strong edges in the form of Fafita and Bo Fermor. But I am going to stick with the Knights because I did say a couple of weeks ago they were looking pretty mid, but I'm actually starting to see them as a little bit above mid because Pong has actually really added some things to this attack. Crosland and Cogger, I mean, it's like their 20 million halves combination, but for some reason looks all right. And then they've got Best coming back into the side as well, which will be huge for the threat of the Knights attack. So I actually am going to still back them here. They have been averaging 29.3 points per game in their last 3, whereas you look at the Titans, even last week, I tried to back them with that plus 20.5 because they had Jollop, because they had Fermor come back, and they still stung me, man. They're still considering 41.3 points per game over that last 3 stretch, and they're losing all of those games as well. So I am going to stick with the Knights. I think the Titans can score enough points to make it close-ish. So I'm going to go Knights 1-12 at $3.50 to continue their record at Newcastle.
Nice, yeah. I really don't get this halves combination that they're rolling out every single week. It's a new one all the time. They signed Phoenix Crossland came through the grades as a halfback, and then they signed him on unders and developed him as a utility. They bought him in at hooker last year and got rid of Brayley, who they'd just re-signed on a massive deal, and it started going really well there. Now they've put Jackson Hastings, they've pulled him, obviously he's leaving next year, they've pulled him, he's playing lock in reserve grade. They've put Crossland back out there. Jack Cogger, the guy that they brought across to be that guy, hasn't even been playing halfback. And then the one that they've had such a headache over this season in terms of Tyson Gamble, they just extended him as well. So I don't get what's happening out there in Newcastle. And I have seen a few rumours floating around that Kalen Ponga is a little bit frustrated as well with what's going on. So keep an eye on that one. My best bet for this game, though, I've got no odds for the next 2, unfortunately, but I've just gone with the 2 fullbacks in here. Kenny and Ponga both to score a try. The Roosters, they take on the Raiders at Allianz Stadium. Roosters $1.17 favourites. The Raiders $5.10 underdogs, and the line's at 15.5. Connor Watson and Cheese are back for them. Suali'i and JWH are both out though. Ain't it fitting, eh? JWH potentially sees a season out suspended. Keep an eye out though, because Mark Nwanga has been named on the extended bench for them as well. It'll be interesting to see if he gets a couple of minutes for them potentially next week if they're going to rest a few players as well. But good to see, man. Both of those guys absolutely killing it. I've heard Carter Gordon, I think, has scored a try and had a try assist in every single game that he's played in the Titans reserve grade. He's been looking fantastic. The Raiders, they're rolling out the same 17 that took down the Riff last weekend. Fantastic home record for the Chooks is a 68% win rate for them here. The Raiders are a 45% win rate at the venue. You'd think it'd just be sort of simple logic here, but the Raiders have won 3 of their last 4 games against the Chooks, and they've won their last 3 games against them here as well. I don't know, man. The Chooks can kind of do this stuff as well, where they might get into an arm wrestle with a pack that the Raiders are going to fold out, and it just gets a little bit niggly, but I'm just going to back them. I've got a little asterisk there saying, don't say I didn't warn you, though.
Okay, fair enough. Especially if the Raiders seem to be almost a bogey team for the Roosters. But I am going to also back the Roosters because earlier this year they did destroy the Raiders, and man, they are literally the best attacking team in the comp, and they have won 4 in a row, and in that stretch averaged 40 points per game as well. So the Roosters are red hot at the moment. They do have the red flags though. That JWH suspension is pretty typical. They also gave away, I think, 5 head-high penalties against the Titans last week. So that's just way too high. Obviously, your usual candidates were there. Victor Radley got one. JWH obviously got suspended for his one. So there is a problem with discipline and then errors as well. Like they always like to have a go from anywhere, and that does force like loose passes and a few errors. So they do have red flags, but when it's right, oh man, it is so right. And the Raiders are a tough team, and I can see why they have beaten the Roosters, and even could see why they could beat the Panthers last week at home. But they struggle against good attacking outfits. As you look at their last couple of weeks, they lost to the Cowboys by 42. Oh, they lost to the Cowboys conceding 42 and then conceded 46 to the Seagulls the week before that. Both losses. So I do think the Roosters will put on an attacking clinic here like they did earlier this year. 20-plus degree weather and a very good weekend of weather for footy in Sydney. So I think that does benefit the attacking rugby league team like the Roosters. And I'm also going to pair it up here because the Tedesco has scored 5 in his last 7 games, and he got a double last time against the Raiders as well. So I'm going to go Roosters 13 plus into the Tedesco anytime try scorer at $3, and I'm going to double stake it.
Ooh, nice, mate. I've just gone for 2 quick guys in this one. Dom Young, Xavier Savage, and I'm going to pair that up with the Chooks to win to anchor that. My best bets for this round, I've got Murray Taulagi and the Cowboys to win $2.20. Schmole and Manly to win at $6.50. Edwards, Luai and Panthers 13 plus at $8. Lomax and the Eels to win at $4.20. Throbo and the Broncos to win at $2.37. If you believe in fairy tales, back me on this. SJ, AFB, Waz win $37, and I've doubled that one. Kenny and Ponga both to score, and then rounding it off with Dom Young, Savage, and the Roosters to win.
I like that, man. A lot of very juicy odds. You literally only need one of those bets to hit, and you'll be looking pretty good for the rest of the week. So I like that. More conservatively, I've gone Cowboys minus 6.5 into Felt anytime try scorer at $2.20. Bulldogs 1 to 12 at $3.40. Panthers 13 plus into Targo anytime try scorer at $2.90. Eels 1 to 12 at $3.60. Broncos minus 8.5 at $2.05. Sharks minus 2.5 into Stone Street anytime try scorer at $2.05. Knights 1 to 12 at $3.50. And then finally, Roosters 13 plus into the Desco anytime try scorer at $3 double stake.
Nice, mate. Tasty. Now we move into the repeat set bets and the 40-20s. My lock of the week, mate, I said it earlier, Selwyn Coppo scored in every single game he's played against the Dolphins. 6 tries in 3 games against them. Saw him smiling earlier this week. It all looks like a good signs ahead for them. So I've got Selwyn Coppo to score at $1.70.
And I'm going hard on that Chooks game because I think they're in the sunny weather. I think they can put on a clinic. I'm going Roosters 13 plus for my repeat set bet at $1.72.
Tasty. Now we move into the 40-20s. Nothing under $4.20. I'm taking the underdogs this week, man. I've got Manly, the Eels to win, anchor it with the Wires to win at $25.23. All things that could potentially come off. A few upsets maybe this round.
Yeah, I salute your pride for your teams. I'm going more of a conservative one, but just with a few margins added in. I've gone 40-20 bet, Panthers 13 plus, Cowboys minus 6.5, Broncos minus 6.5 at $4.51.
Ooh, nice, mate. All right, that concludes another show for us. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys all again next week.